Here we are now 10 days out from Pentecost Sunday, and really 8 days out from Shavuot, the Pentecost of the Jewish peoples, the historic Jewish timetable. And I feel like we're in a very significant time. It's interesting. My prophet friends, recently had a dream, and in the dream we were in this elevator type kind of thing, but instead of going up, we were going down, and we could visit at certain places in history. We could actually stop off the elevator and go to certain past seasons of history. And in the dream, I wanted to go back to on the fifth floor. I think it's Grace on the fifth floor, to go back to where Frank Bartleman, the intercessor of the Azusa Street revival, was. And in the dream, we stopped off, and we were actually joining William Seymour's fast. Well, William Seymour, ever before the Azusa Street revival, called a 10-day fast. It's not like I'm calling a fast. I think we've called so many fasts, but I believe there is a dimension of centering ourselves, so we're not just everywhere praying for this and that, but for the next 10 days, we are centered on a Pentecostal baptism of the Holy Spirit for us, our children, for our nation, and the nations of the world. I believe we are in that kind of season. I go back, and I've shared this before, I go back to my storyline. I've been overshadowed by a dominating prophecy in 1984-85, where my pastor Cheon had a dream of a black man saying, come to Los Angeles, there's going to be a great revival. That was in 1982 and 84. We went back. We went to Los Angeles seeking that revival. I think it's interesting. It was a black man. I believe the issue of race, that God is doing something in this Pentecostal season that is actually going to do what politics and anger cannot do. With the shooting of this Arbery, Ahmaud Arbery, this sadness, the shedding of blood, this uproar that's taking place, I believe that we need to be voices for the issue of race, for the issue of justice. But I want to tell you, it was William Seymour Tongue of Fire that brought together the Mexican community. I'm just reading about it today on William Seymour and the origins of Pentecostalism, where literally they came from all over. It was blacks and whites laying hands on one another, male and female. The Holy Spirit shattered that Babel of division. And I believe once again, God is saying, I want William Seymour's anointed. I believe that our answers aren't going to be found in anger. They're not going to be found even in social movements as much as an outpouring of the Holy Spirit. As Frank Bartleman said, the color line was washed away in the blood. I'm not saying we don't need to be voices. I am saying this. We need a voice from heaven that heals us, that saves us, and baptizes us into one people. It is interesting that in 1984, when we went out there, I was reading this book called Azusa Street by Frank Bartleman, the story of the year of intercession, 1905, leading up to Bonnie Bray Street, where an African-American community were praying in an upper room, so to speak, and the baptism of the Holy Spirit took place. I had to move it from Bonnie Bray to Azusa Street. In that time was that 10-day fast. And this is when William Seymour became the center, a black man, became the center of a movement that affected the whole globe. We believe we're in this kind of season. It's interesting that I prayed in those days, God, give me the mantle of Frank Bartleman. I don't want to read about revival. I want to see revival. I fasted 18 days. I think I've told the story. I'm sure I have. But then I was praying, God, give me the mantle of Frank Bartleman. The next day, my friend came to me with a dream, had no idea what I was praying. Said, Lou, I had a dream last night. And in this dream, I saw a big black book and the title said Revival. He said, I turned the inside of the cover and I saw a guy's face and his name was Frank Bartleman. And Lou, his face turned to your face. And in the dream, he said, I've got to get this book back to Lou Engle. I've been living under the shadow of that prophecy now for 35 years. And I believe that we've seen movements of the Holy Spirit, but I believe we're entering into the possibility of a great one like we have never seen. And I believe it is the Upper Room Network. As we begin this next 10 days, I want to encourage people to form Upper Room Networks. It was in the 90s. I was actually mobilizing prayer among young Asian kids that actually led to the movement of the call. And I coined the term TURN, Turn the Nation Back to God, by the Upper Room Network. I believe we are in times that all over the world, when we're not meeting in stadiums, there's a movement of cells where men and women like Bartleman in 1905 would be praying in small groups, and they're crying out, oh, blessed Holy Spirit, come again. Almighty Holy Spirit, without the wind of the Holy Spirit, how are we going to save our nation so filled with division, controversy, pain, sin? I'm telling you, we need a baptism of the Holy Spirit. So for the next 10 days, I will be sharing a prophetic roll down. Tomorrow and the next days, I believe God has given us prophetic words that possibly we're in the beginnings of a new day of Pentecost. And so whether we see Pentecost on this coming weekend of Pentecost Sunday and Shavuot, I believe we're in a preparation stage, possibly for the whole next year, until there's a buildup of intercession where the cries of God's people so pound on the gates of heaven that heaven can't hold back. There's coming a great storm of prayer. And so in the next 10 days, can I encourage you, in the mornings, in the nights, meeting with friends, would you be praying, oh, Holy Spirit, baptize us again in the Holy Spirit. It's the 10-day fast of William Seymour to center our focus on a mighty baptism of the Holy Spirit. Bless you. And I will see you tomorrow as we move forward from Pentecost, from Passover to Pentecost.